hear
Yeah,
the recorder. It's going to be recorded so other people can be able to come and hear what the board has to say. And if they have any other questions, they'll be able to come to this same place next Saturday from 6 to 8 and ask the board any follow-up questions. Based on the size that we have here, I'm not sure if we're going to even get a lot of people.
be helpful.
Yeah.
Be helpful.
So, welcome. This is the first ever Brunswick Meadows Community Financial Workshop. The board got the idea of doing this workshop as we were doing the budget. We kind of expected there to be a lot of questions and concerns about the new charges and updated charges that will be given out onto the community. So we wanted to take this opportunity to discuss the financials. Okay. Next. It's not working. Is the slideshow going to be on the recording too? Yes. Okay. Okay. Oh, we have more homeowners coming in. So Mr. Johnson's here. He is our pastor, leads us into prayer for all of our meetings. And we'll have the prayer, and then we'll talk about the etiquette of the meeting, which I'm not really concerned about at this time. Hello, welcome. Please come forward. Come as close as possible. We're hoping this will be a very organic conversation with the community. The history of our community a little bit, that's going to be just more of a spiel out of me for things that I've gone through on my 10 years aboard. Then we'll do the financial review, and then to talk about the special assessments for the pump, which just recently got some really updated information about that. So that's why I'm hoping to have a nice dialogue. And then the overall budget for 2020 for the whole community and the townhomes, and then we'll open it up for questions. Given that, okay, so we'll just go next. I'm about to press enter on my laptop and I can't. So, Mr. Johnson, would you lead us in prayer?
Gracious Father, we thank you, Lord. We thank you for this day. We praise you. We magnify you, Lord. We invite you into this meeting, Father, to calm us and give us more direction, Father. We pray that your strength will be upon our board, listening to the guidance, bless this church, pastor. This is our prayer.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. So just to go over the meeting etiquette real quick, if you could silence your cell phone so we don't have interruptions. Please be respectful of everyone. The conversation here is for homeowners. So if you are a renter, we ask that you hold your questions and submit them in writing to BRM so that we can make sure all homeowner issues are addressed first. And then time limits, I don't foresee it being an issue here, but the official thing is we have a 2-minute time limit for questions, so we can be sure to address everyone. And then, lastly, I put this in expecting a bigger crowd, but, this is a volunteer meeting, and if it gets a little out of control, we will end the meeting, which I don't expect to happen. So just to reintroduce the board of directors, myself, my name is Noni Drake. I am the president of the board, and I've assumed the role of interim treasurer.
And my name's Kenneth. I am VP of the board right now, so in case that Nona is unavailable to pursue her duties, I step in and take over on her behalf.
And I'm Todd Miller. I'm with the management company with Beacon Residential Management.
So we also have 2 other board members that are not present. Our secretary, Deshandra Walker, she's on her way here, and Christy Burr, she's our director, she's our event planner. So this is just a high-level summary of the thing the board is responsible for. I keep this slide, and I'll just let you guys read it, because a lot of people get this idea that the board is about smelling out letters and telling you to cut your trees and put your trash can up. We hire BRM to do that. That is a very small part of our contract with them. They're required per the contract to do deed restriction reviews of the community twice a month. That is the extent that the board is involved with deed restrictions. BRM makes the decisions. They go within the limits of the bylaws on the requirements for the deed. So if anyone's in violation of that, they issue letters in accordance. The board, our big responsibility, what we're working on, is the funding, the financial aspect, and what to do with those funds, and how to keep our community safe. Okay, and that actually takes a significant amount of time to coordinate and ensure everyone's in agreement, and we are not putting the community at risk by the vendors that we select, finding a reputable vendor. As an example, National Night Out was great. We prepaid a vendor that never showed. Now the board has to work with BRM to get that money back. So that's more of what the board is looking to do. So then BRM, Beacon Residential Management, they are a management company. Todd Miller, he already introduced himself. And he has two assistants, Michelle Miller and Brett Miller. So if you ever call the number, they're the people that you're talking to. So you call them for any financial issues that you have with your particular personal, your property. Any comments, concerns you have with the board, or questions you want to present to the board and stuff like that. Their responsibilities also, because there were some questions about what BRM is responsible for and all of that. I'm not one for reading slides out loud. I mean, I feel like everyone can read this, but these are their high-level responsibilities that they provide to our community. The inspections, the property maintenance. Communication, helping us. So that's why, like, if you have an issue, you communicate it to BRM. They'll disseminate it to the board in a summary fashion, so we're not getting 13 different homeowners coming to us from 1,300 different directions. Okay. They're also responsible for our accounts receivable, which is a good 80% of what they do, making sure the accounts are in order. And our community has suffered for when we don't have that perfect. Collections is another one that they're responsible for. So if homeowners are not paying, BRM will ensure that those accounts, they try first ditch efforts to collect dues. And if they're unsuccessful in collecting them, they will coordinate sending those accounts to the attorney. It's also very important. Another thing that our previous management company actually failed to do. So we would have accounts with $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 balances still just sitting and making our books look really bad. Since we've got BRM, they're very diligent about that and ensure that our accounts are good standing, and collections takes over to get homeowners to pay. Because then sometimes it could be that the homeowner is not actually getting the letter. And so once people go to legal have other, the lawyers have other avenues that they can take to contact the residents, homeowners. So without further ado, anybody have any questions about the roles, responsibilities? Just us versus board versus book. Alrighty. So this is what the over 3 days. What's the page? More, yeah.
I would say.
It was a long time.
Meetings.
Very. So our treasurer at the time, Richard, he came up with an initial budget, and we met for 6 hours going over the budget. And we didn't even finish. We still had to deal with the situation with the townhomes at the time, as explained at the time, as understood at the time. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry? This was in August. So typically in terms of the timing for the budget, we wanted to find the budget as soon as possible, because the goal is actually to get to determine what the assessment needs to be. Okay, it's in the board's best interest for the community to determine that as quickly as possible at the end of like the third quarter. Okay, because if it's going to go up, we need to give residents a lot of information about it, which is why we started it we started having a conversation about, okay, we need to start planning for the budget in July. We had the initial meeting with the board members only at the beginning of July with the hopes that we could, get it done within those 2 weeks, and then have our August meeting, which is the fourth Monday, and approve the budget. And in that way, BRM would have a whole month to do their part of the process, which is to input the new budget. Especially if there's going to be an increase, we usually have some kind of long drawn out communication that goes with the mailing of the assessment. So it allows them that time to work with their vendor to get the numbers exactly correct on how the letters are supposed to go. And then those letters will be mailed out at the beginning of the next month. So if we had approved it in August, then then BRM takes a month to process everything, and then letters would start going out in October. So everyone would have, by October 15th or so, they would know, okay, this is the assessment. You can start planning your financial situation, right? In prior years, the board we were focused on other things, and we forget to do the budget, and we kind of wait till the last minute, and those letters weren't going out until October, November. There was one year they didn't even go out until December, and so we had to delay the due date for a couple months in the following year. Okay, so going back to that conversation. So we had a long conversation, and we came up based at the time to keep the annual assessment for the whole community at $415, because we're not gonna at this point change anything from last year on what we were spending or the main money on. Okay, because the biggest issue that we were facing this past year was the pump. We've been through the litigation that we had been trying to do with the developer for the pump finally ended. We signed the agreement to accept a settlement of $65,000. And so now we are in a situation where we have no other course to get any additional funding. So we felt at the time as a board that in order to protect the community, we needed to get savings in the event that the pump should stop working, as well as funding for the continued maintenance of the pump, which the community is responsible for. So that's where the special assessment was discussed. And per the bylaws, the maximum special assessment that the board can impose is $300. Okay. Oh, actually, one more. There's one more. So then the last thing was the monthly assessment for the townhomes. Again, going on the information at the time, when we started having the conversation about the budget in August, we had spent roughly $300,000 of $500,000 that we had allocated this year for maintenance for the townhomes. And based on the information, we had about 40, there's 115 buildings, we had done about 70 building roof replacements, and all of the information for the past 3 years that I've had is that all of the roofs are 10-year roofs, and us being 15 years into our community or so, they all needed to be replaced. So the math just is what the math is. You take 115 buildings, we've done 71 of them. Each building to replace the roof is $8,500. There was about 40 left. The math was something like 40 times 8,500 is something like $345,000, somewhere in there, $1,000. That was still needed in addition to the $500,000 that was already allocated. Okay, so that's how backing up from that number of, okay, we need $345,000 to finish the rest of the 40 roofs that need to be replaced. So we just backed up into the calculation and arrived at $210 per month to cover the rest of the roofs, and it will cover the rest of the roofs as well as give us a little cushion for putting money back into the reserves, because we took out $500,000 from the reserve solely for the townhome. So how many townhome owners do we have here? Okay, good. Oh, y'all sitting all together. Okay, so you guys had For the monthly, and when I talk about the townhome reserves, I am solely talking about what you are spending, what you're giving every month. I don't factor in your annual with that, okay? So y'all had about 750,000 in reserves from that monthly. So we calculated the percentage for the insurance that's required in the event that a tornado comes through and rips off a couple of roofs. We have to pay 20% deductible as regular insurance is, but the 20% is on our commercial contract, which is in the millions. So 20% is actually like 212, roughly 200.
Actually, on named storms, it's 3% of the total value of the property. So it's around 750,000.
So it's even more. So we put aside some money for the insurance in the event that we have to pay the deductible, which, you know, truth be told, with the way the insurance work, we have never, in the years that I've been on the board, been able to successfully process a claim through the commercial level insurance. Every time we have, they hem-ha, say no, we appeal, they still say no. So the insurance, we have it because it's a requirement, but the reality of it is, because it's a commercial level insurance, we would never be able to actually use it for, let's say a storm does hit, but it only hits one particular unit. We would really have to come out of reserves for that because it'd be cheaper than the deductible to pay for the repairs. So that's how we came up with, okay, so I'm going back to how much money. So you guys, I was talking about there was $712,000 or something like that, $1,000 in the townhome reserves. We took $500,000 of that. We have used it, we've allocated that to be used all of this year, which we are going to use, okay? So you guys only have the 212 left. Beginning of the year, you only have the 212 left, which we want to just keep saved. It's our insurance policy. Like, we shouldn't really touch it. So we do need to get your reserves back up to a sustainable amount in the event something else could happen. Because we're responsible for the roofs and the siding of the townhome. So that includes power washing and painting of your roofs. Of the siding when those things come about. Yep. So technically, you guys, I'm sorry, so the question is, is the HOA responsible, is the homeowner responsible for the actual physical hardy plank? Because that's what the siding is, right? I don't think any of the townhomes have brick, do they? No. So hardy plank, right? So yes, the HOA is 100% responsible for hardy plank and shingles. So if your hardy plank is messed up, just take a picture of it, go on the HOA website, and submit your request, and we will get Mercedes or Odyssey out there to do the repairs. And we have done a significant amount of repairs for siding, including painting. See, now it gets a little bit more technical, Todd.
Windows and
frames.
doors.
The question is window frames.
Yeah, windows and doors, including the frames, are not HOA covered. It's the individual homeowners. That actually includes the garage door as well. So the only thing that the things that a homeowner is responsible for are, starting from the bottom going up, are the slab. If there's any foundation work that needs to be done, that's a homeowner's responsibility. And then the windows and the doors, including the frames. Now the trim pieces around the outside, that's considered siding, and that siding on the house is all association responsibility. But the actual windows and doors themselves are y'all's responsibility. And then the roof and the siding are the association responsibility. And if something were to happen and the whole building burned to the ground or was wiped out by a tornado, that's where the association insurance covers everything to be rebuilt exactly like it was before.
But doesn't include contents.
Does not include contents insurance. So while you don't have to have a homeowner policy,
for your home because it's covered under the association insurance. You do have to have a policy to cover your contents if you want your contents to be covered. Those are usually pretty inexpensive policies to get, nowhere near as much as a homeowner's policy. So if you go to your insurance company, make sure you tell them, I just want the contents only insurance, and then you can contact us and we'll give you a copy of your certificate of insurance for your mortgage company for the actual building. Yes?
So we consider the building a unit. So each unit is 2 residents. So we have 230 residents that have townhomes, but there's 115 actual buildings. So the cost is $8,500 per building. Times 115, yes.
Correct.
Mhm.
Fire or a hurricane that blows it down, or a tornado that levels it and completely destroys it, the association has to rebuild the house, the structure, which would include both units, interior and exterior. Even though the association's only responsible for the roof and the siding, the way that the covenants read, in the event of a total loss, the association is responsible for replacing the entire structure and has to insure the structure for that purpose. So the insurance actually covers total loss. Yeah, no, you don't, no, you don't need to. No, you don't need to.
That's actually a really good thing, right? Yeah, the agent probably know, but they want to make money, right? You guys
Sure.
have to protect yourselves from.
Yeah, so what you'll need to do is just contact us Monday morning, and we can send you over the certificate of insurance, or if you want to, before you leave, I can email it to you today. You take this certificate of insurance and you go to your agent and say, hey, look, my building is covered under the association's policy. Here's the policy, and it's got all the limits and liability and everything on there. I want to change my policy to just a content-only coverage, and that should save you a significant amount of money. It ought to be half of what you're paying now. You're welcome.
Look, these conversations are just so valuable to have. I've kind of learned quite a lot of information just in the past 12 hours myself. So, all right. So this total for the budget that we were estimating, with the annual assessment at $415, the special assessment for the pump at $300, and the townhome monthly assessment annually was going to be $1.5 million that the community would be getting, up from $913,000 from last year. Okay. Can you go back to the other slide? The question is, what does the annual assessment cover?
Well, the annual assessment, it covers all of the community-wide care. So that covers our landscaping budgets, it covers landscaping repairs, it covers our porter, pretty much anything that affects the community as a whole. So you have the townhome budget, which is specifically for the maintenance of your structures, and then we have the community-wide, which is the grounds in general.
Deed restriction enforcement.
Pardon?
So you're.
Yeah. It covers our porter that we have coming out to do the trash pickups throughout the community.
So the question is, what does the annual assessment cover picking up trash out throughout the community?
Litter throughout the
litter
community.
throughout the community.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so all of the collection effort, it covers all the collection efforts for collecting delinquent accounts. including anything that administratively we do as management, or anything the attorneys do. Now, the things that the attorneys do are recoverable when the homeowner pays their debt. They're going to repay the attorney's fees and any costs that were incurred from our end as well. But that's down the road. The association has to lay that money out first before they can actually recover it later on. But it does include that, and as well as deed restriction enforcement for the entire community. So that's covered as well.
So, did we answer your question? Yes. So for the porter, we have a porter, and he comes out twice a week right now. And we, for the budget for next year, we had the funds to increase it to 3 times a week. That's
Well, because the school year started.
so her response, and we're recording this, that's why I'm having to repeat the questions. So, you want me to closer? Okay. So her question is, or her statement is that there's a significant amount of trash on Foscade at Brunswick Meadows, especially near the park where their buses tend to drop off kids and such. So there's the 2 issues with that. One, of course, it's just people being people, and some people just don't care. The other one is that we actually don't have trash cans along that area. Getting trash cans is pretty expensive. It's something in expenditure that we've been trying to get off the ground. We keep getting bids, and then we keep delaying them because it's like that's a lot of money for trash cans. But we do have a porter. He comes out twice a week right now, and we're going to increase it. I've already had a conversation with him, and the board agreed, and when we did the budget planning, to have him come out 3 times a week to increase it. So, and then I don't think we have it in the budget for next year to do the trash cans. I can't recall right now, but we definitely need to do something. I mean, because it becomes a thing of, is it going to be pretty? Do we really want the cheap ones? Like one of the doggy stations fell down. We had to throw it away. So we want to find something that's, not plastic, that's going to last and look nice. We don't want trash cans everywhere. And it'll just make the job for the porter a little bit easier. That way he doesn't have to go and pick up at it. So his name is Chuck. He has a sign on his car. I don't know if you've seen him. You've seen him? Yeah, he's out there. Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So her statement is that the cost for the roofs is 8,500 times 115. It's over $1 million, and yes, that is correct. Almost $1 million. Yes, that is correct. So I'm going to have another slide where we're going to go into detail about the individual things for the roofs. So, did you? Okay. Yes. No. Which is why we decided to do a assessment increase as opposed to a special assessment specifically for the townhomes. Because, we can do a special assessment specifically for the townhomes to try to get the reserves up, but the maximum of that is $300. So that was not going to, based on the information we had, we needed $345,000, and that was not going to cover that. So that's why we went with 210. And I keep saying based on the information we had, because that information has changed drastically within the past 48 hours. Yes, we will. It's going to be great. That's why I want y'all up here so we can have a conversation about it. We have another person coming. Okay. Alrighty. So next slide. This is a very small slide. This was just what we did last year in comparison. I kept this one here just so that I could, we presented this information. When it's not, the board has been very transparent at the annual meetings and in the other board meetings about where we are. So this slide hasn't changed. The only thing I did was made it bigger. This was the exact slide I presented at the beginning of the year on where we were with a budget and actual perspective. And I can definitely email this presentation out to anybody. I'll actually put it on the website because we have an easier way to put stuff on the website now. Okay. All right, so can you guys see this? Can y'all see that clearly? All right. So This is the income for the main account. How much and where the money is coming into. All right, so this is your annual assessment. Okay, so the first line talks about the operating assessment. This is year to date as of August the 31st. We received $528,047.62. Okay, we were expecting to get $544,825. So we're a little off. No, this is as of August the 31st for the whole year. For the whole year. For the main fund, for the annual assessment. It's not included, it's the 415, not the 125. Okay, so that's your, so the first line is your 415. The second line is anytime someone sells a house, the HOA gets a little cost there to process them into the management system. We get a little bit of interest. There's been some conversations. Can we get more interest? Open to having those more of those conversations. Okay, so then all of the HO charges that you see or income that you see is the upfront cost not cost, but the money we have gotten back from residents paying fines and collection fees and mowing fees that the management company has levied for residents. And this is for the whole year, remember, the whole year. So in DRV fines, the association has collected $26,862. In late fees, $28,710. Okay. Attorney fees, we've collected $55,057. So this is what we've collected. So this is always after we've paid a portion of it to process the transaction. So in order for someone to pay for the register letter, they had to have already received the register letter, which is like a $2 or $5 charge per letter.
So this is really extra money because we were not budgeting to receive.
So the question is, this is extra money. So it's not technically, because it may be when you get the net amount, right? So we can't budget for it because we don't really know what it's gonna be. But we do budget for the cost. So you'll see on the next slide, because this is the income, right? So especially like the legal one. So it looks like from this, just looking at this one slide, it looks like it's a profit of $55,000. But in the next slide, you'll see that there was probably a cost of $47,000 or something like that we have to pay the attorney up front for them to render those services. So we get a lot of requests from homeowners in these situations to have a credit when they are trying to pay off their assessments, their past due assessments. And the board is a very lenient board, I feel like, but we do stand firm in not refunding legal fees, because by the time that resident has received that legal fee, the board has already paid for it. Or the community, let me not say the board, the community has already paid for it. So it's not really fair to refund legal fees, because then it's like everyone's 415 is now going into refunding legal fees for that particular resident's personal situation. And I personally don't feel that's fair. So the board has been very consistent. Now, soft fees, the late fees, interest rate, it's a conversation. The board has an individual conversation as we look at each homeowner situation to determine if we can or should waive any soft fees that may have been on their account, especially if a resident has paid $5,000 in legal fees. You know, do we give them a credit of $1,500 for late fees and interest? You know, it's a case-by-case basis that the board has to do in executive session. Okay? Okay, so then this is the main fund expenses. Okay? Again, so the previous slide was how much money we got in from the 415, and this is how that 415 was spent. Okay, so and this is also as of August the 31st, and it's for the entire year. Okay, so big ticket items that are on this particular slide is the legal. So the previous slide showed 55,000 that we've received in collections for legal, but we paid 72,000. Okay. The other big ticket item that I feel like sometimes the community is not aware of, because they keep asking, well, where's my money going? Where's my money going? Well, the biggest cost is the insurance, the landscaping contract, electricity, water, and our police officer, which we have a dedicated police officer in our community only, right, Murray? He's here today, but this is his extra job right now. So we have a dedicated police officer in our community, and that cost is $65,000. So to kind of explain this one is, so if you're looking at the contract labor one, as of August the 31st, we paid $44,599 out of $65,000. So that's what the budget amount for him, that unit officer is. And if you also look at the budget for the insurance and the landscaping contract. Oh, okay, so this slide is actually not showing you. It's zoomed out, but there is actually another column there. And so the landscaping contract is $147,000. The whole contract. So talking about that a little bit, right? So the new contract, we changed vendors. I would actually say as of right now, this moment, I'm not exactly happy with the current state of our landscaping. But we did change vendors, and last year they were really great. So I think we just need to kind of have more conversations with them. I think we need some fertilization. The other thing that the contract changed was the number of mowings we get. So now we get one mowing a week for the entire year. Prior the year before, I think the year before that, we had a lot of complaints that the grass was overgrown in the October, November, December timeline. And it was because the contract only allowed for mowing every other week during those months because it's colder. But we also had a lot of rain that year, so it caused the grass to grow. So the new contract is that they come out every week if they can. With Imelda, they couldn't come out, and it caused the subdivision to look in disarray. So that was really unfortunate. Any questions about the cost on this slide? Oh, he just fixed it?
He has it for him.
Oh, okay. So the last part is that so this is a continuation of the rest of the cost. So the column is on this one now. So for is it 4 columns? Yeah. So legal, you see legal, or I want to see maintenance fee. Yes. So the management fee, you see, is $25,000, and that is for the main fund account, the main subdivision. And then, let's see, what else is a big ticket item? Water and sewer, right? $94,000. It's the third from the bottom. Water and sewer. We spent $5,493 this past month, and the budgeted amount is $94,000. So we are in the total. Let's see, what column is the total? Yes. That's for 1 month. Oh, wait. Let me just make sure. No, wait, let me think here. Actual budget, year to date.
Yeah, year to date is that second column.
Yeah, the current month. I think that's no. I think that's the total. Hold on.
So at this point,
From the budget,
from the
yes.
budget
At this point, as of the 31st of August. So that first column is the total for the year. So I want to say the water and sewer is off. That category is a little off. So we'll have to come back. Because if you look at the management fee, it's $18,000, and the $18,000 is, right, for the whole year as of August 31st, where the maximum we're going to be providing to BRM is $25,000. So the water and sewer is just off for right here for some reason. Because that amount is usually quarterly. We get about 3 or 4 invoices, and it's about $5,000 each time. Yes, Mr. Johnson. Oh, the question is, what is the cost for the security? And the answer is $65,000 a year. That the security, the police officers includes a on-shift marked patrol car in uniform 40 hours a week. That is for one police officer for our community only. Okay, so someone else had a question about like trash, and we were thinking it was so we have the porter for the trash, but the WCID provides both trash service as well as security, because we're in county. The sheriff office, I've never even really seen a sheriff out here. There's just too many of us for the sheriff. So the WCID has a contract with the constable office to provide security for all 5 of the WCID communities. That's ours. There's Brunswick Meadows, Brunswick Lakes, Brunswick Place, and Morningside. Morningside has 2, so that's why it's 5. Okay. So in addition to that, we have our own dedicated police officer for our community. And prior to having the fully 8-hour dedicated police officer, we had an unmarked police officer that was like undercover in a sense. He wasn't exactly undercover, but he was unmarked, watching the community. And so we've been having this police presence in our community for the past 2 years, and we've seen a significant drop in crime. At one point, there was a drug house that is now no longer existing. And so when there's been door kicks, the police officers have immediate contact to me, and I post stuff on Nextdoor. So we have a much bigger community involvement and security involvement in our community. Full time here in our community. If anything ever happens in the community doing their shift, just know there's an immediate response. If you get on Nextdoor and say something, you should do it on. You can do it on Nextdoor, but you should also call the police first. Call the police first, and the response is like that because he's already in the community. Constable. I think 911 has it fixed now. Yeah. So you should just put your constable's number in your phone. Put that as your emergency number. Actually, so he might. Hey, watch it now. You got to be careful with those police officers. Actually, one quick thing. Actually, so so this meeting is being recorded. I forgot to tell you guys that it's actually being live streamed on YouTube right now. So if someone could go to the Jones Memorial website, YouTube website, and then the link to this recording is on there, and you can share it on Nextdoor if someone know how to do that. Just go to Jones Memorial's YouTube site, and you should see the recording happening live, and if you share it on Nextdoor. We have it, and I believe what was happening was they have one report for our community and the WCID combined together, so the stats won't really show our community individually. I've asked for that, but they're like, it's a lot of work. And the report is very, very, very detailed, and I think I forwarded it to the board. Maybe we could get like a summary of it and start posting that somewhere. Not really sure who or how we would post it. But yes, they do, just as their whole sales pitch that they're doing a good job. They send that out. I want to say they send it out quarterly. Oh, I'm sorry. That question was, do we have some statistics on the crime rate going down? And I just know because every time something happens, they usually message me, and I haven't really received a lot of those messages lately. Yes, ma'am.
Unholy goods.
40, which line? Maintenance and repairs? On the fences, okay. S- 2,500. We budgeted, so maintenance and repairs for $9,015. Um, I want to say, I don't recall having the mulch. Yeah, the mulch.
Mulching, that was, mulching the playgrounds. We have to keep it at a certain height and depth for it to be safe. So we did remulch the playgrounds, this year, and I think that was that 9,000.
No, because I didn't see anything that popped out, because I went through all of the invoices yesterday, and I didn't see anything that popped out for repairs that was anything significant. Again, that
Irrigation
number
repair
is
here and there,
the
but
irrigation. Yeah, the sprinkler systems were broken. This year we didn't have the extra cost that we had last year, but there were some sprinkler issues that we had to fix.
I think a panel,
Oh yeah, the panel was
the
messed
panel
up.
on the front was messed up. So we had a couple of, when we got our new landscaping company, they did an inspection of the community and they found some areas that were in disrepair. So there was a larger chunk up front to repair that and to get that irrigation back up and going. And then also to remulch the playgrounds. So that's mostly those big expenses there. But those should not be recurring for the next year. As needed. I thought it was maybe an every 1 or 2 year thing, but it really just depends on the wear and the use of the playground. And I think, is that something that will get assessed with?
The
Other communities that we manage usually get by with around 5 to 7 years before they have to remulch again. So we should be able to get 5 to 7 years out of
hopefully.
this go round, and we won't have to do it again until that time. Now, obviously, if we have a big flood and it all floats away, that changes everything. So hopefully that won't happen.
So the next one that you mentioned is the fencing. The fencing is a big deal, right? So the homeowner association is responsible for the perimeter of the community for our bylaws. I know there was a lot of back and forth on that over the years, because I know when I moved in, they said anything with a capped fence is the HOA's responsibility. But in reading the actual bylaws, it only says that the perimeter is the HOA responsibility, which makes sense, because if anyone's driving from our community down that side street to get to Sonic, you see what happens when your HOA is not in control of the perimeter, and you have people putting their fence this way and that way, somebody's leaning and someone's not leaning, right? So it just is, even though it's a cost to the community, it's actually, I feel like from a safety perspective, it's a justified cost. And it allows our perimeter to be consistent, and we can respond very quickly, and we don't have to, as long as we budget it accordingly, we're not at we don't have to wait on the homeowner to also be able to do their side, because inside of Brunswick Meadows, that's not considered perimeter, because that's inside of the community. So thus, if your fence butts up to Brunswick Meadows, it's no different than the side of your fence that butts up to your neighbor. The other side is not owned by you, it's owned by someone else, so it's considered and there's a link to the YouTube channel. So it's considered a party wall. So if you have a house, one side is a party wall to neighbor 1, the other side is a party wall to neighbor 2. Your back fence is a party wall to the homeowners association. The question is, who's responsible for the bushes outside of the fence? And yes, the landscaping company is responsible. So the question is, who's maintaining those shrubberies, and what happens when those shrubs go through the fence? 100%, the landscaping company should be handling that. If you find that they are not, please take a picture, post it on the website, or submit the form on the website, When you guys do that, the entire board gets that communication that someone posted something on the website, so we can respond in kind pretty quickly to all issues. So yes, they should be. And I've heard other complaints that, some crews that they get, they hedge them right. Some crews that they get, they don't hedge them right, and they have to keep telling them. So definitely, the board needs that feedback so we can hold our vendors accountable. You guys are our eyes and ears out there, because we can't be everywhere all at the same time. She had a question back there. So her question is specific to the townhomes about what she was told by your realtor or the person that sold you your house, the previous owner, in terms of what's the HOA's responsibility for maintenance. And we're gonna have a whole nother section for townhomes, so let's just we can keep it there, because once I bring up the numbers, you guys are gonna have a lot more questions. So the fences. So, so, so the, so, so the question is, we went over budget for the fencing, okay? Keeping in mind, like, the budget is a very fluid thing. We have to define one to kind of get an idea. We have to plan. Failure to plan is planning to fail. So it's our plan, right? As long as we don't go over the profit that we're expecting, the annual assessment amount with anything, we're gonna be fine. CJ, can you go back to the slide with the graph on it? So this slide is really interesting. So the orange is what we spent, whereas the brown is the budget. So this is comparing 18 and 19, but it's very similar to this for every year, right? We'll do 19 actual versus 19 budgeted. So one area we will be under budget, and another area will be over budget. But as long as the net is that we are in the green, we're gonna be okay. So, yes, because once we got into, so when we went into 18, we didn't have,
An accurate idea, an accurate projection of what would be happening with the fences. That kind of came up as the year continued along.
so his statement is that with the reserve study identified areas in the community that the association would be fiscally responsible for, including the roofs, the fencing, and other areas. Okay. But so can we go, CJ, can you go to the slide where it has the fence on there? It's a two down, I think, from there. The next one, or maybe it's two more. This is the next one from this one. Next one. This one. Yes, this one. So we spent 105,000. We budgeted 40,000, so we were 65,000 over budget for that, for the fencing. Mm-hmm. I don't want to say there's a for bad budgeting. It's like the board adjusted for the situation that we had at the time. Yeah. We knew about it, so we knew about it. We were just responding to the adjustments so the contract that we had with our fence vendor was $5,000 a month, and we started doing $5,000 a month June.
My
memory's not stretching back
So
that
we
far.
started 5,000 a month, sometime June or May or somewhere in there of last year of 2018. Yeah. So it was because we were just getting so many complaints and stuff like that. No. So we the 60 at the end is the budget. No, wait.
That's the next phase.
The yearly budget, year to date budget. Yeah. So it was 5,000 a month.
So for the 12 months, that would be the 60,000 budget.
But then we realized that the vendor was really, huh?
Well, the 40 is the year to date. So what we would have spent, what we should have spent if we were staying on budget year to date.
So the fence vendor was complaining that if we stay at 5,000 a month, it's gonna take, by the time I finish, I'm gonna have to start over and do it again. So then we came together, we reviewed the finances, and we were able to come up with a significant amount more per month. I can't tell you off the top of my head right now, because I have other numbers in my head, but we came up with a different number that he started to do every month.
Like about, it varied between, I think, 10 and 15,000 a month we were able to increase for a few months.
You're just talking about, your concern is just, but you're comparing just the budgeted amount for that one line, what we spent versus what we budgeted. Yeah, so if you're looking at it only from that perspective, we're gonna be significantly over on the budget for the fences. Okay, any other questions for that slide? Cause I don't know how we're doing on time, but yes, ma'am. Inside Brunswick Meadows. HOA. Yep. Someone moved in 2 months ago and was told the HOA was responsible for the top.
And I don't know where they're getting this
Yeah,
information
they're
from.
just trying to sell their house, unfortunately. It's really disappointing. So, unfortunately, right. Right. So her question is, how should she budget, because she has a party wall fence for, that the other party is the HOA, how should you budget? So, and then who's responsible for it, okay?
What is
so-
your address real quick?
Yeah, cause it's gonna.
Well,
Oh, yeah,
Look it up.
oh, because that's being
It's
recorded.
recorded.
She doesn't want it
Oh.
recorded to the.
Okay.
So to kind of high level answer the question, right? So we have, houses that are on the corners, or you can text them, houses that are on the corners of the entrances. So if your house is on the corner of Scott, and half of your house faces Scott, and the other half faces Brunswick Meadows, the side that faces Scott, 100% HOA responsibility. The outside,
Yeah,
so it has to be
four
Scott. It's community property, because we own, so technically, the perimeter is also a party wall, because one side is your property, and the other side is the HOA's property. But the bylaws specifically say that the HOA is responsible for the perimeter. You're responsible for the inside. And then also another factor is the security, the risk, right? The HOA, so let's say we have a homeowner that doesn't have the funds, and they get someone, or, they can't be out there to watch the work, and they fix their fence along Brunswick Meadows. And they don't fix it right, and they have a nail poking out, and the basketball runs over there, and the kid runs to try to get the basketball, stabs on the nail. Who's responsible for that, right? So the kid is gonna get injured, right? So the HOA wants to reduce or eliminate that risk, and that's why we are responsible half on our side for the fence lines, and we do have Paige put together very detailed specification on what the requirements of the fencing are, because you don't have to use our vendor, but if you do use your own vendor, our vendor will do an inspection to make sure it's per the HOA standards for the party wall fencing inside the community. Okay, cool. Alrighty, any other questions about the expenses for the main fund? Yes, Furman and Scott, and then there's some other, so you got Fuqua, so Furman, and then that first street past the water treatment plant is like Fuqua. Like there's houses right there, but out on the other side, there's another strip of land. That whole, from Furman all the way to Scott, that's another perimeter section. That's been very difficult and cost us a lot to get maintained, so that the fencing vendor can go back there and put the fencing up. And they also have the issue where they got trees impacting their fence and stuff like that, because we didn't have a landscape agreement for that area before. Okay. Next. So, townhomes. All right. Where's your money coming from for the townhomes, okay? So this again is year to date as of August the 31st for the townhome income. So we received as of August the 31st, $236,511 in assessments. This is your $125 that you pay in, okay? Then you'll also see the way balance sheet and financials work. You can see that there's a funding from the reserves, where you can see that we're taking money from the reserves, bringing it into the checking account to start to pay off the maintenance. So what happens is every month we get the invoices for the maintenance, transfers are done from the savings account into the checking account, and then those invoices are paid. We had a couple houses for sale, and then interest income. Now, the transfers to the townhome reserves, I'm not sure, Todd, on that one. That
was
very
what was
confusing.
budgeted. That was the amount that the board set initially as the funding for the townhome reserves was $600.25 per month. So we're doing
Okay.
it. We're making the transfer. We're taking the $41,666 out to cover the roof replacements each month, and then we're putting back $600.25, because initially we didn't have the $41,000 in the budget, but it's all in there now.
Any questions on the revenue? Okay. Now, the cost, right? So, this is the cost to maintain the townhomes. This is where your 125 is going to the different vendors. So the biggest one, minus the roofs. The roofs are the biggest one. The third from the bottom line item, roof replacements. We've done 405,000. That's but that one is not gonna, once we get this year done, we shouldn't have to deal with it at this volume for another 30 years, okay? And then 30-year roofs, absolutely, yes.
But we probably ought to budget for 20.
Oh, really?
30-year roofs don't last 30 years, not in Houston, Texas.
Oh, Lord, okay.
They last about 20, so we really should fiscally budget for a 20-year replacement. Unfortunately, that's just the way that it is. Houston's rough on shingles. Yeah.
At the same time, yeah.
Precisely.
better-
Have the money in the
better
bank to be
stagger.
able to replace them as we need them. Some actually will make it to 30 years. Some are gonna need to be replaced at 20. So it's gonna be a process, and as long as you spread that cost out over that 10-year period, we won't have this problem again.
10 years, no, yeah. So most builders put in 10-year roofs. So if I got my roof replaced. So for other homeowners, how many of y'all got your roofs replaced already? No, not town homeowners. No, we know yours. I'm saying for the homeowner. So you got yours replaced. You guys haven't? Yeah. So mine was impacted by Harvey. Like I had missing shingles and stuff, so I had to replace mine. Before Harvey? Okay. So yeah, so there was a 10-year roof, and they're like Harvey, blah blah blah, and I'm like, fine, not fine, but okay. Because the problem with here's the other issue when we can get into the insurance conversation, which is your next big ticketed item that doesn't go away, is if we're a single family, the insurance company do go out and do an assessment of your property. So if you have a tree touching your roof, we won't renew your policy. So we get into a risk with that with the townhomes by saying, oh, the townhomes are an issue if we try to make a claim. They deny the claim, and then they're like, well, you need to fix these roofs before we will do a new policy for you guys. So we want to not have to deal with that. So we definitely want to make sure the roofs are in good condition. So the insurance, which I'm not a good fan of the insurance, but it is what it is. It's $112,000 we've paid so far. I believe we have one more payment. Oh no, we're paying
For the year, we're gonna pay $121,653 roughly.
and that's going to go up by 40. Did you say 4% or 5%?
45. So here's where we're at right now, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay, so right now, the townhomes are insured for $23,740,000. There's 230 townhomes, so if you do the math, 23,740,000 divided by 230, that's a value of $103,217 per townhome. Now, I know y'all all know what your homes are worth, and it's worth significantly more than that. Most of them are selling in the $150,000 range. Some of them we've seen some come through in the $170,000 and $185,000 range. But let's take, just for instance, a value of $150,000, because I think that's probably middle of the road. That means that we're okay for this year, because this year we found a company that would keep it at the same rate at $23,740,000. But they told us when we got the policy written that they were going to send somebody out to do an evaluation, and we know that there's going to be an increase based on that. If they come out and they evaluate it honestly at $150,000 per unit, that brings your total insured value up to $34,500,000. That's a 45% increase in value. Right now they're really undervalued as far as the insurance goes, which is good for our rates, but unfortunately it's not going to be sustainable when they come out and they send an adjuster around and he walks the community and sees how much the resale comps are going for. It's going to go up. So whether it goes up a full 45%, I don't know. This year, I think we're at $121,653. If it does go up 45%, that's an additional $54,743 a year that will be added to that insurance expense on that site right there. Now, it may not go up all at once. I'm not a real big fan of insurance companies, but like Nona said, we have to have it. It's a necessity that we all suffer through. I don't know about y'all, but my insurance rates have never gone down. They've only ever gone up. Whether they increase it all at once or they hit us with 20% this year and 25% next year, I don't know. I don't know how their algorithms are going to work on that. A 45% increase is going to be a pretty big increase, but they could certainly hit us with that all at once. And if that happens, then we have to be ready to adjust for it or at least budget for it. So that's the bottom line. It's going to go up. It could go up by as much as $54,743 a year. And if you take that number and divide it by $230 per home, that's a pretty significant increase.
In addition to that, we pay interest because we don't have the. Well, we're going to have a very fluid conversation about that. No, we're going to have a very fluid conversation about that in a second. I just want to make sure we get through this real quick. So the insurance, $112, that's the cost for that. It's potentially going to go up by, let's just give a round number of $60,000. Okay. Administrative costs, the maintenance, the roof repairs, the replacements, management fees. So the management fees the townhomes pay an additional management fee. Because unlike the rest of the community, the single-family homes, there's way more conversation and dialogue with the townhome owners and BRM. There, you guys call more, there's more maintenance.
We have
It's
to
really
process the monthly
and the invoices.
invoices and send out the monthly invoices and process the monthly payments. So that's something that
lot more
the rest of the community doesn't have.
So that's why there's that extra cost. So it's roughly a little over, it's like $1,200 a month, okay? And then the little reserve contribution that we're handing, that's $600 a month. So, let's see, what's the next slide? Okay. Let's have a very fluid, I'll have a very open mind. I want everyone to have a very open mind about the situation with the roofs, okay? So, back in the beginning of this conversation, I said we were doing the budget. The information at the time was what it was. The information at the time was we've done 70 or so roofs, and we have the difference of 115 to go. One that dealt to represented about $345,000. So we needed to come up with that $345,000 to replace the roofs and such, okay? Anybody saw my post on Nextdoor where I asked townhome owners to come over to help me with the finances to go through the invoices? I had 4 townhome owners and 1 resident, single family. We spent 4 hours. We ate pizza. We talked. We went over line by line 7 Excel pages of invoices from our roofing vendor. It literally took all of us to go through it, and we didn't even finish it. Yesterday, I spent another 6 hours on it. And the positive information that I have is that we don't need another $340,000 to replace all of the roofs. That is not the number, okay? So I still need some more. I'm gonna ask those townhome owners to come back to revet the numbers, because that's one thing that I have come to see, that we need more eyes on these numbers, right? Because one of the things that we found was that, and it might be just misunderstanding, but we've been charged multiple inspection costs, okay? And there was another charge of a roof replacement, and then 3 months later, $1,500 repair. So usually that doesn't slip through the cracks, because one of the board members is usually on it, but that one did slip through the cracks. So there's some conversations that I'm gonna have with our vendor, right? But it just kind of indicates more that we need more people, that can be reserved and private about it and help with keeping everybody honest and making sure the financials are correct, okay? So I can't show the slide for it because it's just too much information. Actually, let me see, hold on. Actually, no, yes. CJ, can you just go ahead and skip through some slides? I'm gonna come back to the pump because I know these townhome owners want to talk about the townhomes first, so we'll come back to the pump. The next few slides are about the pump. So if you go to the slide that says townhomes start 2019, the one right before that one. Okay, so this slide is identical to what I presented at the beginning of the year. Didn't change anything, I just increased the font because CJ said it needed to be a bigger font, okay? At the beginning of the year, that's what we spent last year on maintenance, okay? Roof replacements, talking about that, how many we replaced last year, 95, right? That was the information we had at the time, okay? Next slide, CJ. Okay, so these are the numbers that I've come up with based on that meeting with the other homeowners and me working on it significantly last night. The first column represents a summary per street. So Birchnall has 10 units on that street. Brenner Ridge has 7 units. So it's units, so double that to see how many homeowners, okay? So as a summary for inspections, we've done about $7,400 in inspections. Power washing, every unit has been power washed. If your unit has not been power washed, you can call me. Because we have paid for every unit to be power washed. If you see mold on your units, we need to know. Okay? Yes. We paid $44,660 for power washing. If your unit was not power washed, you need to notify the board. And take pictures.
Take pictures.
Because there's no way we can go to every unit to say it was power washed. So we need the homeowners to help us keep our vendor honest. Okay? So the statement is they power washed your house and they damaged the shingles? Or the hardy plank? The hardy plank. That's the concern with power washing, when we don't want to really do it every year, because when you do it, it kind of damages the paint. So if it did, just take a picture of it, send it to us, and we'll have them go back out there and fix it if there's damage to the actual hardy plank.
One of the next big projects is going to be, after we get the roofs under control, is going to be painting and repairing the siding on homes, because there's a lot of homes that have chipped pieces of the hardy plank or whatever, and those will be, for the most part, those are going to be repaired whenever we get to the painting portion, which is coming up pretty rapidly.
So is there a plan to kind of get all of these kinds of maintenance, things in the townhomes, like on a cycle, so you're not having to do all of them at one time? Like all the roof needs to be done at one time. You know, and the same with the painting, you don't wanna have to do all of them at one time, because that makes it less of an expense. Is there a plan?
Right, it should be spread out over like a 3 or a 5 year period, absolutely, and I think that's something the board's talked about.
In the past, we have, the question was, is there gonna be, more of a plan to, do these big maintenance jobs for the townhomes, the painting and such, and yes, there have been. So the previous vendor we had was way more expensive. I think it was, I just saw the invoice, I was looking for it, it was like, $1,880 per house, per resident, so that was double to do power wash and painting. And it took him, we had a 2-year plan for that. It was $100,000 to do those. We're not using that vendor no more. It's just too expensive. We're not using that vendor that was charging us those rates anymore. The fixtures? From the door. Right. Yes, ma'am. So the question is, what is the HOA responsible for? So the HOA owns the roof and the structure. So we are 100% responsible to ensure the roof and the structure.
The siding.
The siding are within the deed restrictions. So it's, bad karma for BRM to send letters for mold and the townhomes are moldy. So they would send the board a letter to say, your townhomes are moldy. You gotta clean it.
There's not an established schedule in the bylaws as of now. It's as needed, but hopefully we can get a consistent schedule, something made up. I think that was the other question is, how are we going to break this up in the future so that we're not hit all the time? So we don't have a general understanding of power washing, painting once a year, even though that's been the word spread around. But we also don't have a set schedule yet of, expect every 2 years to have this done, every 3 years to have this done. As is now, it seems more of an as needed and as we're seeing it, but that needs to change.
So the question is it as requested? I would say, why not? I'm fluid conversation here, guys. Why not, right? So, um, as homeowners, single-family homeowners, we don't go into it like, okay, this year I'm gonna budget for power washing my driveway, right? We just come out one day, or somebody knocks on your door and is like, hey, you want to power wash your driveway? And you're like, oh, okay, so I have the money for it. So yeah. So I think as long as we're putting if we're fiscally responsible for your monthly, okay, and putting it into savings, when homeowners complain that, and then that's the other thing that I just learned, not all of the townhomes have the same issues. So I feel like there are some townhomes that are more susceptible to mold in the front, on this side. So you're coming down Brunswick, Scott is here, you're coming down Brunswick Meadows, the townhomes over here always seem to look moldy. But then the townhomes that are off of Furman, no issues. Those townhome owners, is anyone off of the Furman entrance? Yeah, so I totally understand all your questions. You're probably like, what maintenance? What issues? My townhome's fine. Another resident was like that to me. I was like, what are you talking about? But yeah, I mean, the only thing I can think is that you guys had a different builder. Because the first section, that was the main section of the townhomes at the very beginning of the community, section 1, section 2, or section 4. And so those builders really didn't do nobody no good. Okay, but then once they got more experience or got a different builder off of Furman, those townhomes are pretty solid. If you actually see here, so off of Maybrook Hollow, for inspections and power washing, and siding, very, very little there in terms of cost. Because, so that's what I'm saying. If your house was, so you see this charge, there was $11,000 charged for power washing for Maybrook Hollow. I mean, it would be if.
And if there's any.
If you have mold on your home when you get home, snap a picture and email it to us, please.
I don't. So the
They
question
did
is,
door
do they
hangers.
notify you?
Y'all did door hangers.
Do we do door hangers for
I
the power
think you
washing?
did. No? Okay.
Yeah, for the power washing. Yep, they sure did. Yep. Yep. So I would say that it's like this. If what do y'all? Yeah. So because okay, with the roofs are way more expensive. We say we're not going to pay an invoice unless we have a homeowner sign off on it. With the townhome, with the power washing, it was just so many of them. I believe we just kind of took their word for it that they actually did it. So if yours wasn't done, we pay for it. You pay for it. So we definitely need to keep them honest if it wasn't done.
So if you have mold, send me the pictures so I can get a hold of the contractor and tell him to get back out there.
So to have not the sidewalks, yeah, not.
No,
So
this is just the siding on your home. No driveway, just the siding on your home.
So I would definitely want to have a conversation about this. How do y'all feel about that, right? I'm thinking, you want to schedule? So schedule. So what about you guys call in and say, hey, I see mold on my townhome. BRM puts it on their to-do list the next time they go out to do a de-restriction walkthrough. And if they confirm that there's mold, maybe we put it on a list of, okay, we have a set amount for power washing for that quarter. We do 10 or whatever the number works out to be for that quarter. They get put on the list, and then, once that quarter is open to doing the power washing, that way we can still respond to homeowners to let us know, right? And we're not Because the other side of it is maybe your house didn't need to be power washed, and we paid $325 for that, $85. So, why should we just say, oh, all townhomes just go ahead and get a power wash? But then I see a negative is people just say, oh, well, my house hasn't been power washed. Well, did you let us know you wanted it power washed? How do we too much work?
Same thing with paint. Paint is generally gonna last around 10 years on hardy plank. If we buy good paint, you're gonna see a lifespan of about 10 years. So to repaint everything, then we're talking spreading it out over like a 3-year period so that it's not all up front. So you paint a third of the community one year, a third of the community the next year, and a third of the community the next year, and then you've got another 7 years before you have to start again. Generally speaking, that would be a good schedule to have for something like that. And then, of course, in the middle of that, power wash.
You can't manage the expense if you're just gonna let people call in and pick the time they want to. There's no way to manage the expense.
We've got some hands up in the back side. I've seen y'all move a while. Well, I think we're discussing a process moving forward. If we want to do the calling in versus having it on a schedule. For
So the question is, how is it budgeted, right? Your 125 is meant for maintenance. That's what it's for. It's for insurance and maintenance. So the insurance comes out to be about $50 or so of your 125. The rest is meant for maintenance. So we have to budget in the sense that we have to know, oh, okay, we can't do all 115 buildings, but we definitely have the ability to respond to a particular homeowner's individual request for their individual home. Okay. Now the pushback that you received the past year for power washing was that the focus of that 125 was for the roofs. 100% of all the money was going to the roofs. We were not doing any power washing. We were not taking every single dollar we got from the 125 we were putting outside of the insurance, we were putting towards the roofs. Repairs, replacements, inspections. That's why. But now we're at a point where now we need to start thinking about, okay, that's a feat that we pretty much towards the end of. So we need to start thinking about, okay, next year, what's the next thing? And then how to prevent what just happened, okay? Yeah. Let me hold that question and let her ask her question because I want to go into more detail about that. The inspections of the, are you talking about the deed restriction inspection? Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Yes, 100%. And see, that's what I was saying, that if the BRM will tell us when the townhomes have mold on them. They don't send out a letter because we're just right here, right? And we would have to approve it. But then same difference is that they don't see everything. They only see what's visible from the street, which everything off of Sandstone Bend is very visible from the street, right? Because it's the back of the townhomes. So in those instances, that's why we went ahead and approved the power washing for this past year, because Sandstone was pretty bad and we hadn't done it in a while and such. Um, right. So yes. So it is the HOA's responsibility to power wash the townhomes. The only reason we were not power washing the townhomes last year was because every dime was going to the roofs. Yeah, so we were we were rightfully, not rightfully, we were just a justified violation, right? We did have it was just a one-off to get us here. So this slide, I just want to make sure I finish it, right? So outside of the roofs, the other charges or maintenance that comes across as a cost is the inspections for the roofs, the power washing, and the siding. So if you have siding issues, please call in. We've done $60,000 this year. Actually, I rephrase. This is for the lifetime. This is not just for 2019. This is for the lifetime since we got with the new vendor. Okay, he's done $60,000 in non-roof type replacements or maintenance. I'm sorry? It's like, well, really it's from BRM system. So there could be more from beginning of 2018. So from January 2018 to the end of May, that's in a different system, which is not going to reflect here. Yeah, 18 months roughly. Okay. All right. So now the next slide is where we want to go, CJ. This is the big cost, right? Sorry. The roofs and where they're at in terms of replacements. So this is really where, from a townhome perspective, this is the slide, the money slide. Okay. So we've spent $65,000 over the past 18 months just on repairs alone. Why? In the beginning of 18, or not the beginning, but June or so of 18, the board we didn't have a lot of money at the time. We were still coming off of the previous management company. The previous management company's management fee was over $100,000. It was like $120,000, okay? And we had paid half of that by the time we left them. So the townhomes, the management fee for you guys, instead of it being $1,200 a month, was way more than that. So that was taken away, that cost was taken away from, the ability to put those funds into maintenance, okay? So there was not a lot of money in 2018 for doing everything, for replacements. So we did a lot of repairs. So that's one of the reasons why the repair count is so high, okay? The other reason is that our vendor was trying to save us money. Our vendor was saying, he was giving us his estimate and his idea on whether it should be a repair or do a replacement. And the board was doing more repairs because they were cheaper. And they were actually cheaper at the time in 2018. It got us to 2019, okay? But the unfortunate part is that what we found was that the repairs didn't hold, especially for the roofs. Because one of the other issues with the roofs was that you had the 10-year issue where the roofs were just old. Then you had another issue of improperly installed roofs, where the roof was not, there were not 6 nails per shingle, there were 3 nails per shingle. So a storm would come in, shingle would come up, water would get in, $1,500 repair. He'd fix it in January, another storm would come, they're calling again in April. But it's a different portion of the roof that now the shingle has come up on, and now it's wet. So it was frustrating to the board, and it was frustrating to the vendor, because now he has to constantly go back out to the same house. So that's why in 2019, we really said, for the roofs where we know that the nails per shingle is a problem, we won't really do many repairs, we just go ahead and do the replacements. And our treasurer at the time was able to do his calculations and came up with a solution of taking the $500,000 from the reserves and contributing them to getting the roofs replaced. So so this, it looks a little confusing because the number is for 18, includes 18, but I wanted to get a full view, not just by year, but a full view of what's left to be done. That's the question. How much is left? Because we've done a lot, okay? So for the repairs, 65,000, the replacements, and I wish I had the counts here, but there's just not enough screen space. 571,000, okay? And now the golden egg is the last two, the third and fourth column, the pending repairs and replacements. That's it. That's left. I've been in conversation with Mercedes, and that's it for the rest of the year. So that comes out to be about $71,000 or so remaining to finish the roof, the majority, the issue roof replacements. Okay. Now, will there be? We can't just say, okay, there's going to be no zero. The maintenance of the town is not going to go down to zero, but it's not at the $350,000 we thought we needed. This is the number. What, sorry, what's your question? That's what I'm saying. I don't want to say that exactly. Yes? I have about I have a different spreadsheet where it has every house, every unit, and the charge, right? So this is a summary of it, but I do have each house listed. And there's about, how many, like 5 or 6? 5 or 6?
They still need inspections.
Where we don't see an inspection, a repair, or replacement. Okay, but a lot of those are along Maybrook Hollow, which Maybrook Hollow seems to be the good ones. So definitely still more conversations to have, okay? That's why that's why I asked y'all to get closer. We could have a conversation, we could talk about it. But it's not the dire straits that I thought it was back in August. And so, did I have that slide? Let me see, go back 1 second. No, the slide is actually not. Actually, yes, it is. Can you go back to slide 16, CJ? It has the 33 for the reserve. One more, I think. That one. So, as of August the 31st, we spent $333,333 on the roofs for the townhomes. Okay. Right, had that number in their head. Now, if you can go back to that slide that I was on with the remaining roofs. Roof maintenance cost, it's 23, I believe. This one, okay. Trying to figure out the best way to, no, one more, sorry. Yes. So, 68 plus the 3,000. 71,000, okay. So the 577 is the grand total, okay, for the 2 years. That 3333 was just for 2019. So just kind of we did some for 18, right? Ultimately, what I'm getting at is based on the numbers that I have, $71,000 from the rest of the 500,000. So we had the 500,000 minus 33,000, okay, minus the 71,000, and that kind of comes up to what we've already paid, but it's not that we paid in September, and we will have $30,000 left of the 500,000, roughly. Again, I'm gonna ask some other homeowners to come in and vet those numbers, but that's the calculation I'm coming up with right now. Okay. Huh? The original number was that we were going to eat through the $500 total and still need another $350,000. That's exactly what we're saying. Huh? That's what this conversation is about, right? So part of it is about part of the conversation is you guys have no reserves now. So the board has voted for the 210 as of right now, that stands, right? And every conversation, everything about this conversation, we cannot make any decisions in this meeting. It's just a conversation, okay? But now you have the board here to convince us what's the best option. And we can tell you from on our side of this table, the impact of that, doing it that way. So there's no wrong answer. So let's just kind of talk about it.
The decision has been made about the 210.
It's been made, but it's not like we can still go.
It's not based on what the numbers actually are now that the numbers have changed.
Because these numbers are from just a few days ago. These are
Yeah,
fresh.
this is this week's numbers.
Since the numbers have been re-reviewed, what needs to be done for the board to re-examine their decision
This conversation
This
right now.
conversation.
This conversation. So the board is going to meet this week, next week, something like that, to kind of go back over these numbers, right? We have to get the schedule together and all of that, right? And so then at the next monthly meeting in October, if we, based on all of this input, feel like, okay, well, the numbers were wrong, let's adjust it, we totally can. Huh? Well, now, if we review the numbers and the numbers speak for themselves.
Yeah, the math is the math at the end of the day.
So just to recap, the roofing funding was originally the roofing replacements was being funded by $500,000 that came out of your reserve fund. And we've gone through a good portion of that, but it looks like we're not gonna spend it all this year. So there'll be some left over. How much is left over will probably just depend on what happens in the next few months. But with no money in reserves, that means if, God forbid, we had another bad hurricane or a fire that took down stuff, a hurricane, we need a deductible amount in the bank of roughly $475,000 on this year's policy. Next year's policy, it could be even more than that, because we're talking about, remember the increase I talked about. Next year, it could be as much as $690,000 you would need to have in reserves to cover the deductible if we had a real bad storm. So that's what you're dealing with. So we got to figure out a way, or the board needs to figure out to more reserves to cover an unforeseen emergency event like that you'll have the money for, and then it won't be a big deal if we need it and we don't have it.
So based on the rebuilding of the numbers, and that turns out to work okay, it may still be an increase, but it will likely be a smaller increase.
I mean, it's a matter of I just want to know everyone else's opinion at this point, right? To give you guys a place to say, minus next door, how y'all feel about it. What is a comfortable risk for you guys to say? Now, when you make this decision, don't think of just yourself. Think of the whole community. The townhomes are an organism. It's not a single homeowner. It's an organism. So if one townhome building goes down, all of you guys have to get that townhome up. So from that perspective, on this side, we got to get the reserves up as much as possible. So to me, the 210 sticks, because all of that money is going to get the reserves up. I know everyone else, but I don't live in the townhomes. I don't have that budget. Yeah. So so convince us what risk? Why we should take the risk? So CJ, can you go back to the slide where it has the summary? It's like the third slide, or slide 13. The one above that one, or after that one.
That's contributes to why we're in this situation.
So with the difference, right? So the last line is the impact for you guys. Okay. So the column 20, the 2020 column is how much the townhome fund account would be. if it was at 210. You were looking at $5,790, $579,000. Okay, that's with 210. Yeah, that's just the income. Yeah, that's right. So Todd, if you could subtract the insurance from that, right? So then with the original rate, it's 345. Okay, so once we take out, okay, so the insurance is 160. Let's say the insurance is going to be 160. Okay, over 10 years, over 10. Well, okay, so another thing for you guys is yeah. So here, let me say something about the reserves, and because we didn't get into that. Everyone is aware of the situation where the previous management company misused your funds. Okay, so y'all okay with that? I don't need to go into that spiel. I want to kind of say it for the people that might be watching the recording, because I know I talked to one homeowner that just moved in 2 months ago. Okay, so the board technically did not have the full monthly amount y'all had been paying into since '07, because the previous management company was very much in control of the funds. Okay, and this is also why you see me have more of a bigger presence here, because I just want to make sure, I just want to say that this board is run by the residents. Okay, not by the management company. Definitely need them. We cannot do this without them. But it's a partnership on both sides. So that previous management company was definitely mismanaging, misusing, not just the town homeowners funds, but the main fund in general. The smallest example that I have is the flag. At the corner, at the intersection of the Beltway and Scott, there's a flagpole. And we have a veteran in the community that doesn't like the flag to look bad. An honorable thing. So he calls the previous management company, says the flag looks bad. Immediately there's a $600 charge to the community to buy some flags for a pole that the community actually doesn't even own. That's the small things that I'm talking about. And then you take it to the town homeowners, right? And you get that one town homeowner that's not taking no for an answer because her roof is leaking. And we end up with a roofer going out at midnight, and there's a $500 inspection fee to the townhomes. Okay, then the vendor that we had was charging double, $14,000 for every unit to replace the roofs. So they ate through a significant portion of that monthly amount for a long time. Now, can we get our money back? No. Went through multiple legal courses. The contract that we had with that the previous management company, there's no course to sue them. They acted in the best intention, right? Which is also why I'm now at this place where I want to have a dialogue with the homeowners, because this board is acting in the best intentions. Do we have misinformation? Does that make our intentions bad if we're acting off of misinformation? No. So that's why it's good to have the conversation of where's the money going, how is it doing, let's double check these numbers. So what's a good amount? Let's come out with an amount that y'all feel is good. And just back in. Okay,
Todd
so
is getting that
can you
number
go,
right
CJ,
now
can
with
you
the
go,
210.
so the number that we would get is somewhere between 345 and 579. That's the number we're working with. So if you go down, I think 2 more slides to where you see the townhome expenses.
It's a good thing too for the reserve study.
Yes, and we have to do the reserve study
Yes,
too.
we're
One more?
trying to get a reserve study, because that will, you want to know, what are the numbers that we need to get to? And so the reserve study is what goes through the community and will update
One more,
us
CJ.
on our 5-year plan of what we need to have saved in the reserves.
No. $17?
And so I think right now, we're trying to get the numbers on what we could put into the reserve, but
That's
still have our deductible from the insurance if we have the 210 number. So maybe that reserve amount is a reasonable minimal amount that we need to put in, then we need to stick with the 210. Maybe it's something much greater, and we'll kind of,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what,
is.
yeah, exactly. And I get a refund check sometimes. So here is what we spent this year for you guys. So $641,000. And that's so far, exactly, so far. So, and this does include the roofs. So, yeah, good point. So you can't take it out exactly. So I would say
Still have to plan for the next roofs.
I would say that, 60, so we got the fee, so that's gonna stay the same. The roof replacement, $405,000, maybe we make that 100,000. Yeah, so we take the 641, and who has the calculator out? So take the 641,712 minus 300,000, because we're saying we'll keep 100,000 in there. And then increase. So then let's see. So we're saying we do 112,000 for the insurance, but we know that's gonna. We said we're gonna take that to 160, right? For next year, we're just gonna estimate it's gonna be 160.
This is all budget for 2020.
So basically, if we budget, and this is just taking the numbers that we have, today's numbers, which like you pointed out, are gonna have to be adjusted down the road for inflation. But just say a roof, $8,500 in today's money, and you have 230 homes. Actually, I did that wrong. It should only be 115. Roughly, your expenses are going to be about $130 to $140 a month, with the remainder of the money of that $210 going into your reserves.
So
Assuming we amortize for paint, and I guesstimated around $8,000 per building to paint. I don't know if that's going to be high or low, but I think that's kind of ballpark. The roofs I did at $8,500, and then the insurance I did at the higher number, and then basically divided the total amount by 230 homes per, and then by 12 per month. So we're probably looking at, I got to refigure the numbers, but it's going to be probably $140 in actual expenses. Now that's just your amortized expenses. That doesn't count any siding issues that come up that are outside of a normal siding replacement. I think I did paint and siding repair at every 15 years, and I did roofs at every 20 years. So the roof should last. These roofs that we have put on should last 20 years. So I've amortized that cost out over 20 years. Same thing with the paint, except I used 15 years, just based on experience. It should be around probably 140, but I'll figure out the correct number, because I did 230 homes times 8,500, but it's not. It's actually 115.
So while he does that, so we're saying, I'm sorry. You're cold?
No, I'm really trying to understand, because even with the 8,500 per roof, you have to take into consideration that the price of the roof may go up.
Right.
It may no longer be 8,500.
No, and it won't be. I guarantee
he
it won't
guarantees.
be.
Mercedes is always going up on his roof.
That when you're doing roofs, that 8,500 this year may not be 8,500.
Well, especially 15 years from now, when these homes are going to need to have new roofs put on. Right. That's why the reserve study is so much more important than us just spitballing numbers up here.
Yeah, for sure.
Can you speak up a little bit, Richard?
There's one other important factor. So even though you have that chart from all work buildings on, I know for a fact that Odyssey has not replaced 115 roofs. Some of those we know will be expired within the next 5 years as well, based on the initial data that Odyssey provided. So we can't just think we're going to just do 1 or 2 roofs next year.
No.
There are a significant number of roofs that have not been repaired in the building because they were projected to have approximately 3 to 5 years on them.
Based on the numbers that I have, the only roofs that he's not really replacing are the ones along Bainbrook Hollow. which, he's saying 4 to 5 years where your hasn't been replaced. I'll have to see what, well, don't tell me, Birchnell? Okay. Okay, I bet your house is the one I highlighted that hasn't been inspected. There's, like I said, there's about 5 that hasn't had an inspection, that hasn't had a repair, and hasn't had a replacement. So we need to figure out what those are. That's correct. Right, so, and that's why, so for this number, I'm not saying take this number, the roof repairs and replacements down to 0. That can't go to 0 ever, right? But so the first one, that's, the repairs is what we did for repairs already. So that number, give it, increase it for the monthly for the next 3 months. So you maybe 70,000. And then for the roof replacements, do about 100,000, which, that would be at least like 10 roofs, right? You're getting confused. No, what he's trying to calculate is we need to figure out the minimum amount for the money to go towards the maintenance and the insurance. So what is the cost? Not the minimum you have to pay, but the minimum cost, right? The minimum cost to maintain the bare bones requirements, the insurance, replacing the roofs in 30 years, repainting the siding in 15 years, those things.
And that's not counting anything that might pop up in between or contributions to the reserve.
We should pay, yeah. So if the minimum amount is like, let's just give some numbers, right, to kind of make it a little clear. Let's say the minimum amount for the community is $140, right? So you guys are currently paying $125. So you're at a deficit there, so that means nothing is going into savings, okay? So then you just kind of deviate from there, like kind of back into how much do you guys feel is a comfortable risk to have into savings? That's the question I want to know. There's no requirements.
Well, I think we have a legal responsibility to maintain for
Yes.
insurance and to,
I mean, legal-
we can't say zero. I don't think we could say we're only going to pay the bare bones because that's just, it's just not responsible.
It's not.
See,
We gotta be
there's a risk,
responsible.
there's a risk here, okay? And it's balancing the risk versus the reward. And risk is all fine and good as long as we never have a loss. Then, you know what, if we never have a loss, you don't need any money in reserves.
The weather will get better in the coming years. We'll have fewer storms.
But that we all know is a foolish way to look at things and to plan, okay? The amount of money that you should have in reserve is the amount of money to meet the insurance deductible in case there's a major disaster, plus you need to be budgeting every month to be able to replace the roofs when needed, 20 years, from the date roughly. Same thing with paint. Paint every 15 years, replace a roof every 20 years. Those amount of monies need to be saved every single month and adjusted as time goes on to adjust for inflation, like you said, and just the rising cost of things. And unfortunately, that has not happened in the past, which is kind of how we ended up in this position. Based on $210, and again, I just amortized this out like I mentioned before, $210, you actually have of amortized expenses. Now, this doesn't take into consideration any other expenses that are going to crop up. So there's going to be other things that crop up, but $130 would be the amortized expenses for your insurance, your roof, and your paint. Those are the big three. It doesn't take into consideration siding repairs or any other kind of repairs or any increases in the prices of those things. So based on that, $130 a month for those amortized expenses, in the next year, if we didn't have anything, you'd put roughly $220,000 back into your reserves. Now, that's way lower than what you need. What you need is, like we talked about,
We need the 212, but it needs to probably be like
475,000, roughly, is what you need
And we have 212 right now?
without the increase.
We have
No,
212?
210, the 210 would give us about 200,000 savings over the next year, which is less than half of what we should have.
Just for the
Just for
insurance
the
deductible.
insurance deductible.
Just for the insurance deductible. So,
So it would take us several years at 210 to get to just having enough to cover an insurance deductible and no additional expenses
and that's,
beyond the amortized.
and that's saying, yeah, exactly.
So
this
no
is a
emergencies
good
needed
conversation, so
things.
you guys see how on our side, like, it's a difficult conversation. We're fiscally responsible to get the reserves up. Nothing.
Zero. Beyond zero, because as we
It's
just
130.
learned,
It'd be a
130 will
negative.
cover the bare bones without
Yeah.
any additional anything happening.
We would actually be in a deficit, yeah. A whole lot of other issues.
And think
So-
y'all have been paying less than that for how long? And so it's been a lot of lost opportunity to build up and plan because there have not been responsible increases.
The better way to have budgeted for this would be to increase a little bit each year over the last 10, 12 years. There should have been incremental increases, and unfortunately, that apparently didn't happen.
Yeah, the developer didn't want to increase it because he wanted to get more people in the homes, right? And then when the community finally took over the board, we were dealing with all of the mess.
Right,
But they were
$85,
like
$90.
$5, yeah. So one thing Mr. Johnson.
Also, the managing company was elevating their fee every year.
Yeah.
In regards to what was going on right now. So those fees that we were missing were going to the.
Yeah, so the money was so mismanaged, and so a lot of it was lost, unfortunately. I was trying to find. It was mismanaged, right? So, because you should have, you should have had more. So if you do an average, so really you only had $700,000 over 10 years. But if you calculate, let's just say $100 at 230 people at 10 years, what's that?
Should have been a lot more.
A lot more. Let's say an average of $100 at 230 people, so times 230, times 10 years. 10 years. Huh? No, you're doing that times 12 months. So it's $100 times 230 times 12, and then times 10. 2 million? You should have had like 2 million or something
Instead
like
of
that.
500,000.
Instead of 500,000. To cover the roofs, yeah. Correct. So we didn't really have it, the reserve thing is just savings account versus checking account. It's tomato when it comes to the
So
fiscal
there
issues.
was so many homes that had major roof leaks that there wasn't enough money coming in to cover all of the roof replacements that were needed to stop the leaks. So that's how the board came up with this plan to utilize the reserves, which is a stopgap measure is a good thing because now we have homes that aren't leaking anymore. And the problem with leaking roofs, obviously, is if we let them leak, it's going to cause sheetrock damage, carpet damage, and guess who's on the hook for all that?
Mold, yeah.
The HOA is, yeah. So we have to stop the leaks, and if we don't, then we're going to incur more expenses.
Right. So
Yeah,
let me throw out
absolutely.
some devil's advocate stuff, because I just want to keep the dialogue going for a little bit longer here. I mean, we do have a 2 o'clock deadline, but why not a loan? Because I know somebody was thinking that. Why not a loan? Okay. The problem with a loan is that the townhomes, our community is one community to any lender. We have one organization, Brunswick Meadows Homeowners Association. Okay. So any loan that our community tries to take the community would be responsible for it, 100%. So if we could, which we can't, but if we could take out a loan from the townhomes, the lender is not gonna care specifically about the townhomes. If hypothetically, let's say all of you guys move out and stop giving the monthly and default on the loan, because the loan was from Brunswick Meadows Homeowners Association, the single family homes would be responsible. Okay? And so the reason why we can't take out a loan specifically for the townhomes is that our bylaws currently, which can be changed, the bylaws can be changed, right? But the current bylaws say that the only way to take out, the board can only take out a loan for common areas of the association. That is our park, landscaping, all of the common areas, right? So the board can take out a loan, but only for common areas. Now, you guys want to try to petition the community to adjust the bylaws as such, definitely an effort that you can do, but I think it's gonna be difficult.
But let me just point out, even if you took out a loan and you got
It costs way
you gotta pay it back, and you're gonna pay it back with interest, you're gonna be paying back more
it's gonna
than
cost.
what your increase is currently, because you're paying back the principal and you're paying back interest, and it's gonna end up being more than what you're looking at now. That's just a realistic point.
Just wanted to play devil's advocate for the people that are like enjoy loans or prefer loans.
At the end of the day, you know, it's the same expense that, an individual homeowner has, except we're taking care of this directly out of their pockets. We're taking care of it directly out of our pockets by paying the same money to the association.
You know, so I would actually say, unfortunately, you guys are at a disadvantage because the single family homes, those roofing contractors, they know how to get insurance companies to do claims on roofs. So for my roof, I didn't pay anything. I had a great roofer. I didn't pay anything. He had extra stuff on that, right? It's a commercial thing, so we have to come up with what's $450,000.
2%.
That's just for you, that you have a good roofer. I mean, my neighbors have all had their roofs replaced, and they've had to pay out of pocket.
Yeah.
So, you know,
I had a good roofer.
that's not the thing for everybody, especially in single family homes.
I had the same experience after the hurricane. I had to pay for my roof out of my own pocket too. It was $12,000.
But really, as a homeowner, at the end of the day, when your roof really just needs to be replaced, you still have the expense of it.
Right,
Yes.
that's
Oh
correct.
yeah, I did. Yeah, definitely.
It's
Yeah.
just different on how, at what time the money comes out of your pocket.
Yep.
Yes, ma'am?
I mean, the question is, should we expect the monthly payment to go up? For inflation, you should. I mean, the goal here would be to come up with this dialogue, kind of not necessarily agree, because ultimately it's the board's decision to make the final amount. But we want your opinion, and we'll come up with a number that we should calculate for the reserves. And then we'd probably do a percentage for dealing with inflation going forward. To come up with a budgeted, a proper planned 5-year plan for maintenance, and then have the budget be in line with that plan.
There has to be, just simply from an accounting point of view, and expense point of view, there has to be incremental increases along the way. Otherwise, you end up being in the same position that you were in right now. 10 years from now, you don't want to be sitting in this position again, and they're looking at another big, huge increase. It impacts everybody way too hard. But how much of the incremental increase needs to be really will just depend on, number one, what the reserve study tells the board whenever we get that finished, and where we're at as far as savings coming through and into next year, how much we've got saved up, or how much we anticipate saving towards the insurance deductible next year, and what's an acceptable amount of risk. So if everything goes according to plan, we're only going to have half of the insurance deductible next year. If we get lucky and God looks down upon us and smiles and we don't have any hurricanes, then that was an acceptable amount of risk. We won. If something bad happens and we lose, then it's going to be a big
Vegas
moment, and we're going to have to figure out another plan. So the easy answer is to say there'll be some sort of incremental increases just to keep you on level playing field with inflation over the next 10 to 20 years as things move up. How much that is just will really depend on how we do over the next probably 2 to 3 years, I think.
Hypothetically speaking, there's no, like, in 10 years from now, like, or 50 years from now, who
Right.
knows what the situation will be. Yeah, it's just like your taxes. Yeah. All right, so we do have another area of discussion, which is the pump, and that also has some shocking information as well. A little over 212. It might get up. So right now we have officially like 212,000. Okay, and then I anticipate that by the end of the year, of the 500,000 we allocated for the roofs, we'll get about 30,000 of that back to go back to the official reserves for the townhomes. So about 250 or so. But no, she's asking how much is it just in this. Say it again. Yeah. 400. 400 would be the minimal.
I think it was more like 450, closer to 460. Where's the number? With our anticipated, it could be higher, it could be lower.
475,000 just for the insurance
Yeah.
deductible. 475,000.
And so we're halfway to that. So then we wouldn't be able to do any other situations like this. Not that we're going to get a situation like this.
That's at the current rate, okay? That's at the current rate. If they actually increase as much as they can increase, you're looking at 690,000.
So you really need $1 million
690.
in savings, I would say.
And then you got to add in what is going to be amortized, or what needs to be amortized for the future for roof replacements, building painting, and what was the third thing? Those two things plus the
Siding,
insurance
siding.
and the siding replacements. Yeah.
Yeah, the roof maintenance for taking out of the reserves as of next year, yes, that's going to be.
So now we get to
minimal.
restart the process of saving up for the next one.
Yeah, but
Each year you should be saving for the next year.
yeah, but it's less than that. It's less. So we.
I think there's been
Yeah.
64 fixed.
I mean, they're not just a number, just kind of an idea of what do you guys feel is a valid, based on all the information that you know on this side, what's a number y'all feel is an acceptable risk to take to have in the reserves?
210 will not get us to cover the insurance deductible. Are y'all comfortable with not having the insurance deductible met in the event of an emergency? No, in the event of like a massive emergency. Yeah.
So if there's a hurricane next year that comes through and it blows the roofs off of all the buildings in the community, and every roof sustains damage, we're talking about a claim that'll probably be in the millions, probably $1 or $2, maybe $3 million. Of that, the association's got to pay
475,000.
this year 475,000. Next year, it could be as much as 690,000.
And we're planning for next year.
And remember,
year-
you know, and remember what I just said about taking out a loan.
Which we can't get.
You can't take out a loan.
You can't
for
take
it.
out a loan.
So this is why we have special assessments, right? So what would happen is if we had a named storm and we have to come up with $475,000, which we don't actively have in savings right now, we would do an immediate special assessment
Right.
that would be due the next month for everybody, and then we would increase your assessments. Because we can change the assessments anytime. Yes, in the townhomes, yes. We would have a special assessment for the townhomes that would be immediately due.
Yeah,
One
this would
second.
be what we'd have to come up with town homeowners would have to come up with in about a month.
Yeah, that's not,
And that's still with the rates we've got this year, which are gonna be
$2,066 roughly.
per townhome owner in a month. And that's
Yeah.
with our 450, not the
Yeah.
690 that we're expecting.
Yeah,
That I would
if
be
they
so
increase the insurance as much as they can, divided by 230, that's $3,000, $3,000 per home.
Yeah.
See, that's how we get around the loan issue.
Unfortunately, that's what we end up, I've end up seeing is people have to go out and get a $3,000 loan because we don't have that money just laying around to shell out.
Yeah,
That's why we're trying to plan in advance and make sure that kind of thing doesn't happen.
and protect, I mean, I know it's a significant cost, but, it keeps us responsible.
Not for the first year.
It's a-
If
it's a
we
good
have an
start.
incident, if we don't have an incident,
It's great.
then we're good.
Then we
Because
can
the
just
second
keep
year,
saving up.
if we put another, let's just say we put about 200,000 in this first year, 2020, we put 200,000 in. The second year, we put in another 200,000. And that's being optimistic on both years, and no claims, no problems. That still only gives us 400,000 in reserves.
But what are the odds that there's not gonna be anything that wasn't planned for? Because we already wanna be able to call and say, pressure wash my house, so.
Well, paint the siding and, yeah. And like we said, there's gonna still be some roof expenses along the way, that are gonna crop up.
So as of right now, the board has voted for approval, but we're gonna be meeting next week, so. Right, so you voted the board in to make those decisions, that is correct. There is no, I mean, the board could, put it, say it again? One, she's not here. I was trying to get another one, but, yeah. I would love another town homeowner on the board.
Keeps
'Cause it-
things even.
It keeps that, give us our a fresh perspective on things. But I'll say that personally for me, can only speak for myself, that I will be definitely going over everything and seeing if we can technically reduce it, possibly. But based on what this conversation is, I don't see it, because the 210 is not even covering what we need. All right, yeah, so let's kind of table this conversation at this point. Is everybody's questions high level answered, for now for the townhomes? Because we do have one more topic to discuss. The pump, okay, so CJ, I'm sorry if you're still there. Can you go to slide?
And always email. Remember, you can always email us stuff too, and extra questions or suggestions
18.
or ideas.
18.
Email it
Yes,
all.
this one. Okay, so this is another slide that I had from last year, beginning of the year. And I'm saying that just because there's been a lot of flack on Nextdoor that the board is not communicating. This slide, this particular presentation is just a modification of the one that I presented before. So the major financial concerns for the community is the pump, the townhome maintenance, which we've just been talking about, and the fencing, which we pretty much have a resolution on. So now the one thing that's remaining is the pump. Next slide, CJ. So just the high level for people that don't know about the pump. Anybody don't know about the pump in here right now? Who doesn't know? Okay, so what everyone here knows, so I'm really just talking to the people that are that are watching the video, hopefully. So we have a pump. There's a little picture of it right there. If you go on Google Maps, you should be able to find it. If you also look on Google Maps in our community, we have Brunswick Meadows. So if you Brunswick Meadows, it's kind of like a little jelly bean or whatever, and it kind of continues on Sandstone Bend, right? The houses that are in the middle of Brunswick Meadows that go around the detention pond, those houses were not supposed to be there. The original contract that the developer, not your builder, but the developer had with the surrounding municipals flood control, the water district and all and such. They laid the ground for that detention area to be one big space. It was supposed to all be detention pond. The developer, for one reason or another, decided to build houses. He put 3 sections of houses inside of the detention pond. And because there is a calculation that flood control requires for every piece of land that you build on, you need to have a percentage of land for flood control. So in order to keep that number balanced, he created this pump to offset that and push the water out of our community. It is the single most reason why our community did not flood through Harvey. Hands down. Because we were getting all that rain. There's nothing different about where the elevation of our property, Scott, and the 2 other communities over there. There's nothing different in elevation. The only difference was that our pump was pumping that water out of our detention pond, and we have a detention pond. They have retention ponds, so they're at a disadvantage because their flooding area already has water in it, so they don't have a lot more water to put in it. Where ours is the detention pond, so it's not supposed to have water in it. When it started raining for Harvey, it was empty, and we was pushing out water. So at the end of the flooding for Harvey, our detention pond was under its bank because all the water was going out onto, through Scott. And so the water drains down Furman, underneath the Beltway, all the way into Clear Creek. Okay. And I'm going to get to, the streets were flooded. Yeah, so I'm talking to not the homes, right? So because the water is going into Clear Creek, and the decision to go into Clear Creek is all about gravity. It has to go downstream, okay? Clear Creek was over its banks because that's in Pearland. You got all of the nice Pearland houses out there. Maybe they have more retention ponds, and not detention ponds, so they can't take as much space, right? So just like the Army Corps of Engineers opened the levee for all of those homes up north and ruined all of those homes, they also reversed the flow of the water for Clear Creek. Because Clear Creek, if you went down Scott doing Harvey, you couldn't see the curb of Scott. It was literally a river flowing, okay? So they reversed the flow. So instead of our detention pond pushing the water that was in it down into Clear Creek was pushing water into us. So that's why our pond increased when there was no rain. There was no rain. And it's also why it actually eventually, in the front areas of the community, went over the bank. So our pump is a lifesaver. It's really, really important. But it's also, there's a lot of drama behind it. So technically, it's a very expensive piece of equipment that a taxing entity must maintain. So the WCID being a taxing entity, they have the responsibility to do the maintenance on it. They have the engineer, they have the staff, they have the capabilities and the understanding of how to make it work. They work in conjunction with flood control and the other water municipalities to ensure it's functional. Unfortunately, it's on our land owned by the HOA. So somehow we are responsible for the cost of that maintenance. Okay? Up until today, and so that means from 2015, I was told that the HOAs were solely responsible and the pump is a problem, and that is why the WCID will not accept the pump from the developer. Okay? The developer, again, not the builder, but the developer, was trying to get the WCID to accept the pump, and they would not. Over the 10 years that he was in our community, the WCID would not accept the pump. So the developer convinced the original board members to sign an agreement that the HOA would be responsible for the pump. Those two residents that signed that agreement is the sole reason we're in the situation right now. So we have to pay to maintain it. So when they assigned the agreement, that agreement came with a $100,000 check that was supposed to cover the maintenance of the pump over 10 years. We used 50,000 of that. So this slide was done for beginning of 19. So we've already used 50,000 of that, and we use even more in that sense. So it's roughly $10,000 or so a quarter or something like that, or $5,000 to $10,000 a quarter to maintain. So we went back to the developer for 3 years, back and forth through legal actions to try to get more money to say, you know, you said that this $100,000 will last 10 years, and it's not lasting 10 years, and it's more than that, and we also need to get savings in the event that it breaks, so you should pay us for that too. Well, he's a big developer. We're a small organization. Our legal counsel said it's not in our financial best interest because it would take us $50,000 in legal fees just to get to mediation, and we could lose. So we agreed to settle for the $65,000 check, and that's actually reflected in our balance sheet for the pump account. Okay, so the pump is $800,000 to replace, and as I understood it, the WCID didn't want to accept the pump because the developer didn't code it to spec. Flood control will never accept the pump because we're in Harris County and the pump is flowing water into Brazoria County. So Harris County Flood Control sent a letter saying that they would never accept the pump because, one, it doesn't meet whatever specs that they defined, and it flows. If the three reasons: it doesn't meet the specs that they've defined, which I'm not really sure the specs is, over my technical expertise. It flows into Brazoria County's creek, and the flow of it is covered by concrete because it goes underneath the freeway to get to the water. Okay, so they're like, well, even if we took over the maintenance and needed to repair a valve, we'd have to bust up all of that concrete. We don't have jurisdiction over there to do that anyway. So there's this big thing, okay, about the pump. So that is why we said we needed the $300 from each resident to get the reserves for the pump, and that would give us something like $410,000 of the $800,000 in the event the pump needed to be replaced. Okay, but because of other homeowners like you that have been coming to me asking me all of these questions, like why are we having to pay this and what about this, asking me questions that I hadn't thought about, asking the board questions, I started asking other questions. And I just had a conversation before this meeting started with the president of the WCID. And unbeknownst to me, the pump does have insurance. Mind blown. Yep. The pump does have insurance, okay? Not only that, but the WCID also has mechanical insurance. So they have insurance on top of insurance for the pump. The other thing is that the pump is in working condition. And I'm like, I'm confused. I thought you guys didn't accept it because it wasn't built to spec. It's going to die any day. No, there's another reason. There's different reasons why they're not accepting it. The reason has not to do with its functioning, but just because it's more of a battle, a legal battle between the developer not adhering to the original contract than the actual machine itself not working as expected. So, and it also, the next thing I was told was, in contrast with our reserve study, which we're going to get another reserve study, the pump will last 20 to 30 years instead of 8. Mind-blowing. All of this,
like 9:30
mind-blowing. All of this, when you guys were shaking my hand, that's when I was getting all this information. Yeah. So
Documentation of all this, because people can say whatever it is that they want to say.
this is a good point. So my point, so this is all new information to me, right? There's a cost to the insurance. So right now the WCID is taking that on because they have a lot of other fish to fry. But they're eventually going to charge that back to us, like they do charge the other charges back to us, okay? So, how long have they been paying this insurance and never even saying anything to us, right? Mm-hmm. So I think, though, I wanted to be as transparent as possible. I got the information 15 minutes before the meeting started because there's a director here at the church that's also on the board, the water board. So that's kind of what started the conversation. But I wanted to be transparent. I got the information. I'm giving it to you guys. So that being said, off the top of my head right now, I feel like we need to reassess if we need to do the special assessment, because is it necessary? Do we really need the $800,000, or do we need it if we have insurance on it? Do we just need a percentage of that to cover the deductible?
So we need documents.
We need documents,
documentation. So
right?
That's the next step.
That is the next step.
And do we have to still be accounting for some kind of fee to be able to replace?
So according, the information I just received was that replacement of pump should last 20 to 30 years. And even if you did have to do a replacement, it would be, it wouldn't be a total replacement. It may be a $10,000, maybe even $100,000 thing where you're going through the insurance because a part is malfunctioning. Okay. WCID. That is. They actually, so right now, so the developer wanted money. So it's like the government. So the government entices business owners to start a business because it helps the community to have a business. So they'll pay up front for a business to start, right? So likewise, flood control and WCID kind of, the developer, go ahead. Do you have a question?
May I interject?
Yes, please.
Each home is supposed to come, every time a developer builds a home, each percentage is supposed to come out of that, go back to the developer. So the developer is saying that WCID owes them X amount of dollars, and WCID is holding up the banner because the developer himself fraudulently signed some information and made us take the pump, made us responsible for the pump when he knew that the water flood control was not going to take the pump because he didn't keep up with the specs.
And they're
They
required.
put us in the middle of this thing, and he was the president of
The HOA.
of the HOA, and he signed the contract to make us responsible, us being
The HOA.
the HOA responsible for it. And so that's where we are. Right now, we as the HOA, if we had the money, I think we should approach it on the legal side because we got a fraudulent thing that occurred. We're out here with this pump that we're not a government entity. And actually the last, I was able to attend the hearing, and it cost $1 million to get the specs done on our detention pond when he made a little over $2 million to put in 200 more houses into this area. And that put us in the hole. He made his money. And he in the hearing, you have a witness, they have a public record to him saying that he did do this. And so I think this is something that we need to look at as a HOA.
So that's actually a really good point. So, I mean, I am all for suing him, right? But it's not cheap to sue, right? So do we keep the assessment and use that? So, cause look at this. Don't look at it as a short-term cost for long-term benefit, right? $300 today saves us $50,000, $100,000. Even if we didn't have to replace the pump, we're still paying for the maintenance of it, right? That saves us $50,000 to $100,000 in 5 to 10 years. And we could take that through, because the special assessment is for the pump and anything related to the pump. So maybe we could take that special assessment and put it towards legal fees to sue the developer. Now that this other mediation law, it really would depend on what comes out of the mediation, because they're still deliberating, right?
Right, but they have
court records, the transcripts out that are giving new information that we could use.
They cleared that, and that's gonna be in December, they'll be finished with that, and we can take those public records, and I'm all for some of it.
Yeah, I think
I just don't like,
I just don't know. We would have to, we did assign an agreement, so we'd have to look at what that agreement says if we can.
You've already signed an agreement to accept the settlement.
But that was based on a different,
It doesn't matter, you've already signed an agreement to accept the settlement.
but if the agreement was signed under false information,
Attorney and find out.
yeah,
And read what your documents say first.
yeah.
Once you sign an agreement, you accept all responsibility, and you can't go back and sue once you sign your settlement agreement. That's fine.
now, that's what I was about to say.
Hmm?
The fraudulent-
It's fraudulent, yeah.
It was fraudulent, what the developer did. The agreement that you signed was not a fraudulent document.
It was based on fraudulent information.
To us,
That-
made it-
But the settlement that you accepted, based on the information that you received, you made a decision to sign for that settlement. That was not a fraudulent document. That was not a fraudulent deal that was done. You accepted full agreement for that. And so that's why you need to check the documents to make sure that you can go back and sue the language in there. So that you can go back and sue, because based on your information that you signed at that particular time, it was not a fraudulent deal. You accepted settlement for that.
Cause and especially if it specifically mentions future discovery.
Yes.
I'm reading the agreement right now.
But lots of things, definitely things to look at.
You gotta go? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
We own the land that it
We
sits on.
own the land
And
and
the
we
cost
pay
of-
for it. We own the land and the cost, but not the pump. We couldn't send anybody out to fiddle with it or paint it.
They're responsible for maintaining. They got the insurance, they got the engineers, yeah. We pay to make,
We pay them to maintain it.
yeah. The
WCID. Cause someone
That's
signs
the tax-
something sometime.
Because the flood control says we cannot own it,
Cause we're not a taxable entity.
yeah.
But
So
we
they-
have to have it.
Yeah.
To keep the neighborhood dry, we have to have it. So therefore, we have to be responsible for the maintenance of it.
By the WCID.
By the WCID, they go out and monthly and quarterly, they do different things. They recharge batteries.
I was told SI Environmental is the actual, does the hands-on physical work. Their engineers do it.
I can tell you what we spent in the last year.
The 300 initially was, to save up to replace it, cause we had information that was,
No, so the WCID would
well, we would
replace it and
pay
then.
them to replace it. It's
crazy.
a horrible situation.
The strength? I was the president of the board, so. Well,
That's
I
why the
feel like
next
it's
step is
enough.
documentation.
I think it'd be no different than if I was to say something to somebody, right? Right, you're gonna trust and verify the information, right? So I think it's enough of a burden to the community from a reliable source to pause, verify, go to the next meeting, have the conversation, what can we do, you know, and. Yes, and actually she was pretty mad at me for not reaching out earlier. I know.
And then all of a sudden the story changed.
Yeah, but that's okay. I mean, I'm all for, as y'all can see, communication. You know, welcome it, love it. We can talk about anything all day long. I was on the phone with one homeowner for 4 hours. I looked at my phone. I was like, really, 4 hours?
So can you explain, like, if we did not maintain this, cause I know you explained that, but
They would sue us. They would sue us.
yes, they would still, if you end up paying for it.
Now, for the year, we spent, roughly $27,300 to maintain it for 1 year.
That's electricity, internet, water, and then whatever
Maintenance.
maintenance. And so this is also why the pump, huh? Yeah, it needs internet so they can kind of monitor the systems.
The water
away.
level, they have to
Yeah.
monitor the water level in the detention area.
It needs Wi-Fi. So now that y'all know this, when y'all see those ATVs, this is why those ATVs are a problem. Those ATVs get in our detention pond and they mess up the grade and it doesn't flow right. The
Right.
WCID has to go back out and they have to fix it right? And then they love to go when the ground is all kind of soggy and muddy, so they do all of their wheeling. There's country
We
roads
end
for
up paying for that.
that. We all end up paying for it. So if y'all see them, there
are signs already up.
Signs. Now, because the trucks got to get in there, and it would look kind of ugly.
No, they're in our neighborhood.
I don't even know if if they would allow us to put a fence up because
Yeah.
you got to think of it from a water flowing point of view. When it gets up to a certain level and the pump's working and maybe say it's not keeping up, the water is designed to spill over into the streets and the streets are supposed to funnel it out if it gets to that point. And if a fence you got a wood fence up, that's going to chain link.
I know we complain when the grass gets
Aesthetically,
tall.
that
Let's
might
hear
not
what we
be
say
so
we put
nice
chain link
looking.
up.
All right,
Yeah.
so the agreement that I signed, and I'll say because I had to actually sign it, says covenant not to sue. The parties agree not to commence, maintain, or participate in any lawsuit, claim, demand, or proceeding in any jurisdiction that arises from or relates to directly or indirectly the claim released in the previous section, which in big bold words it says hereby releases, acquits, and forever discharges 301 Furman as applicable its successors, predecessors, affiliated companies, owners, officers, managers, directors, agents.
But in exchange,
That's a good one. What if individual homeowners sue them?
You're part of a community, you're a representative of the community, so you still, even as an individual homeowner, you still. She signed on behalf of the entire community.
I
Well, and
still think it's worth
also
having it
too,
looked
one of
at.
the things I don't
we
think
can
that we
have it looked
discussed
at.
properly
It's
is
still worth
that
to have it looked
in
at.
exchange for this
'Cause we're
agreement,
not we can't.
the association got how much money?
60,000.
$60-something thousand on top of the $100,000 that we'd already received.
So 160.
So we've gotten $160,000 towards the maintenance of the pump so far.
But I mean, we don't, is
I'm not
this
saying
mean
it's a
suing
bad
for
deal,
money
but it's
or
not-
suing for ownership or suing to move ownership?
It's not a perfect deal, but I think it's probably an acceptable deal.
All right. So on one end, I think that it's not dire straits with the pump, and that we need to come up with the 800,000. But on the other end, we still do have a cost to be responsible for. So just like we're gonna go back and do the numbers for the townhomes, we can have the conversation of can we reduce it a little bit. I mean, and for me personally, I want to reduce my vote for the special assessment strictly because of the impact of the town homeowners, because you guys are getting double hit. And I tried to do the loan option and that hit a brick wall. And as y'all saw, there's just
It's the numbers. It's
the
math.
numbers are like there's no course.
It's just math.
Meeting
That's gonna be on the 12th,
this
just
Saturday.
to do like a question and answer. So it'll only be a 2-hour meeting so that everyone can review the YouTube recording and see if that answers their questions. And if there's things that still need clarification, we'll discuss it on the 12th.
Yeah, so if you guys come with, yeah, so that's the fourth Monday. The next monthly meeting, if there's an adjustment to what we voted on at the previous
Previously.
meeting, it will have to happen next month.
because we can't put that on.
So, can you hold off on doing any of the assessments? Annual assessment notices stuff?
Oh, here,
Oh, the date is,
October 28th,
Yeah.
6:30, that room.
no. We could have had that room today, but. That's what it is. I'm sorry? Yeah, that's it. That's what we came to talk about. We talked about the townhomes. We get the overview of the 415, where that's going, basically what we've been doing the past year.
So just like when Melvin came, and then nobody thought it would rain as heavily as it did or flood as heavily as it did, and it did. And a lot of areas got flooded, a lot of homes got, flooded again. You know, so, I mean, we gotta prepare for stuff like that.
Yeah.
We don't know.
You know, it seems like, and Richard's right. I mean, it seems like nowadays, y'all, every 2 years, we're seeing a major flood event in this city somewhere. You know, and it may not be in our little subdivision, but we're seeing every 2 years. It's just a gamble that we're playing with. Thank you. I agree with that.
That Harvey was no joke. Let me tell you. All right, so CJ, you can stop the recording if you like. If any of the town homeowners, and I know Richard, you're probably interested in this.